Welcome to the Cynical Marketers podcast, where the greatest minds in marketing, we think, discuss marketing for an audience of several. And now, your hosts, Mike and Nada. All right, everybody, welcome again to another episode of the Cynical Marketers podcast. We are at episode 18. We are 18. Marching along. It's great. Can you believe
until
it?
That big
January
20
1st.
number, in case you guys have been listening to us for a minute, we're 2 away from that big 20, that big 20 number where most folks quit by then.
That's it. That's
we're
the
still
one
here.
we focused on. 99% of all podcasts, they say quit by their 20th episode.
Wild, right?
I know.
We're still here, guys.
We're still here. We're still marching along.
What are we going to talk about today, Mike?
This week, we're talking about AI. And what I think, there's a conspiracy theory. Here's my conspiracy theory I have about this, but I think something is going on with AI. And there's 2 things for us to discuss in this. But the first one is I am convinced that there is an undisclosed influencer campaign that is happening right now. I think, and whatever the caveats are, attorneys, this is my opinion, and it's based on pattern recognition. No one's told me, but OpenAI has billions of dollars. I think there's a lot of people out there talking about it, and that we have an unpaid or an undisclosed influencer campaign happening right now. And my theory on this is that the talk in the world out there is 100% positive. There's no negative. Nobody's out there saying, hey, you know what? I don't think this really works this way. It doesn't work as good as everyone says.
Yeah.
And our world today is so divided. There is nothing that anyone agrees 100% on out there.
No, there definitely isn't. Nope.
So for somebody
everybody loves AI.
On this to be positive, like there's got to be a coordinated thing happening right now.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I'm leaning into this with you, Mike, because yesterday we saw kind of the news hit that former President Obama, was at a tech conference where he said that AI is better at coding than roughly 60 or 70% of folks who do this professionally, or actual, engineers, coders. I apologize to you all because I'm not going to get your titles wrong, but all of you guys that do this, President Obama seems to think that AI is about 70% better than actual folks.
And watch that clip too. It was so strange because he had to, he made that number up, like, as he was talking. He's like,
of course he did.
He's like, even right now, artificial intelligence is better than, what do you say? I don't know, like 60, 70%. I'm like, what?
Well, the coders in the comments don't agree with that statement. I can tell you that.
I know. Yeah.
No, they are not a fan of that statement.
So they didn't like it, but that instance with the former president coming out all of a sudden and speaking, like if you were just scrolling and you saw that, President Obama is speaking, you're like, oh, what's he talking about? Is there some sort of policy discussion?
Right.
No. He's talking about AI and coding. You're like, what? Yeah. Why are you talking about AI and coding?
Even former President Obama is jumping on the AI, clickbait wagon. That's what it feels like. And I mean, so is everybody else, right? Like we've noticed this. There was a clip of Gary Vee today on his channel that said in 15 years, young men are going to date AI. What?
I know. He said that.
I apologize.
Right
I don't know
now,
if he said it specifically young men, but he said people are going to be dating AI.
He said that there's people in this room right now whose grandchildren will be dating.
Yeah, that's AI, what he said. Right? Whose grandkids would be dating AI.
And that's just Gary Vee being crazy, right? Because no one seems to remember. I always bring it up, but Gary Vee said, go buy NFTs. NFTs will fund your retirement and stuff, right? Like he was big on that. He doesn't talk about it anymore, weirdly.
Yeah, because it's not working.
Metaverse, he was in on these things and,
Yeah, but it's just wild where folks that, and we've talked about this, folks that are not experts in these things are leaning into this topic of AI. And we see it everywhere. And to your point, Mike, there is nothing negative. And where I'm kind of stuck, and I don't understand this phenomenon of AI and ChatGPT, is I will see a video of somebody. So in my world, right, on the retention side, I'll see a video of somebody being like, hey, I gave ChatGPT this prompt and look at this great email it designed for me. And it knew to place a call to action above the fold. And it knew all these tricks and tips and all these different things. And I will try to replicate it and can absolutely never get the same result. Not even close, nothing usable, to be quite honest. So then I'm sitting there and I'm going like, how are all these folks saying like, oh, I'm using AI. Look how great it is. Look how amazing it is at analyzing reports. Look at all these positive things, none of which I'm able to replicate using the exact same prompts, using the exact same step-by-step, actions.
And
so where is all this positivity and all this love for ChatGPT coming from?
That's where you don't see it. And I think it's because of, again, I am speculating that I think there's this campaign happening because it creates the impression out here for everybody that it's so easy. So then no one wants to be the one to come out and say like, hey, that didn't work for me that way.
I can't do it. Yeah,
because now you look like the dummy. You're just too dumb to be able to handle this super advanced technology. Because look, it's so easy for everybody else. You're the only one saying this. You must be the dummy. Right? Nobody seems to want to come out and say anything negative about it because there's so much overwhelming positive. This is where I have that feeling. And again, if you put out any opinion on the internet, there will be people there to tell you how dumb you are, except on this one. Why? Like it doesn't match for me. That's why I think there's something going on. Is it a conspiracy theory? Sure, it is a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I think this is one that is definitely, I feel like, it falls into that realm of conspiracy theory, but it's just wild. There are no AI haters, right? Like everybody's like, look at how cool this thing is, especially on the tech side, on the business side, maybe on the personal. We've talked about this too, on the personal side and how AI talks. But there was a post on LinkedIn recently by one of my connections who said, I get so hyped up when AI tells me like, what a good idea, what a good job you're doing. And you kind of go, okay, from the psychological standpoint, that is alarming that you need AI to tell you that you have good ideas. But also it's gaslighting you. Like it is not really, it is sort of pandering to this very odd language model where it just constantly is telling you, it's apologizing if it makes an error, if it's questioning why you're questioning it. It is telling you this sort of passive aggressively, like, good job, buddy.
That's the other thing. So the one thing, we said we were going to talk about too, and the one thing was, I think there's a campaign going on. The other thing is this weird thing that's happening specifically within ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it in the others, but Chat is doing this where, it is this weird pandering and it feels passive aggressive to me. And I had this discussion with my chat the other day. Because dashes, I keep telling it constantly, stop doing that. Stop doing that. So finally I wrote this thing out where I said, you know what? Like, you're supposed to be the super smartest thing that's ever been invented by humans. And yet I keep having to tell you this thing over and over and over. I'm like, you're a large language model. You scour the internet for stuff. Have you not seen the sentiment out there that says anything with an M dash is immediately recognized as being written by ChatGPT? Have you not seen that yourself? I thought this was the thing you do, right? And it came back with me, and I swear, if any of you are old enough, if you've seen the movie 2001, you remember Hal the computer? I swear that the response it gave me, I thought it was going to push me out an airlock next. I was like, okay, Hal. All right, Hal, like, settle down, bro. I mean, it came back and it was just weird where you're like, this is almost like a horror movie script. Like, where it's like, I can understand why you would feel that way. And you're like, isn't this classic gaslighting?
Yes. It's
I know it throws that term around. I know that term gets thrown around everywhere now, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure
no, it is for sure.
I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but
the
behavior of the model is getting weirder, it feels to me.
It really does, though. I've been using it for copy, and I think we've talked about this in our other episode on AI. Been using it for copy for quite some time, right? Like where I'll give it a copy and just be like, hey, I want the tone to be this way a little bit. And obviously, we can be transparent and say we use it for a lot of our captions, for our videos, just SEO optimization. It is not this awful tool. It can be useful. You do have to train it, and we've talked about that. But it's getting to the point where like these two things, right? Like you said, Mike, there's no haters, there's no doubters. Everybody is obsessed with this thing. And then that's the first part. And then the second part is that it's getting sassy. It is getting really just strange in its responses, because I was trying to replicate an action that I saw from somebody else, which is having AI connect to Canva to actually build a deck, right? And it can use these tools, these different tools can connect to ChatGPT, specifically OpenAI. And, it can actually create some, images, infographics, different things. And it kept failing to download the file. Like, it kept providing me links that didn't work. And the general sentiment was exactly what you're talking about. It was like, oh, I'm so sorry, Nada, that this is not working for you. I don't understand why. Let me try again. I did not mean to waste your time. Like, really, I was like, why are you just send the new link? Like, I don't need this entire paragraph of an explanation. And it's kind of got into this weird territory where I'm like, I'm not talking to a person. Why are you apologizing to me?
I know.
Oh, just so creepy.
It's so weird with links too, because I write blog posts for a couple of clients and then for Round to It. And then I'll write them and then I have chat usually like, hey, take a look at this blog post. Find me 3 relevant external links that would be good to work into this article, right? Like, and then it'll be like, you're super smart to ask for that. And you're like, oh, okay, shut up, man. Just go do the thing I told you to do.
Just do
like,
the
we're
thing.
Not buddies. I'm not going out with you after this. But then what it does, invariably, it does this constantly. Gives you 3 links, and the links are broken, always. They go to 404 pages, and you're like, how did you even find this link? And then I've had this discussion with it, too. I'm like, hey, and I'll tell it, like, go find me 3 external links now. And please verify that they actually work, because you love to give broken links.
Right.
When you do that, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry you've had that experience with me in the past. Yeah, you're not that sorry because you keep doing it.
Right. And it is just odd, because all of a sudden, like, the language in which you get the responses has started to change. It wasn't like this, 6 months ago, a year ago. It was very like, oh, you requested this information. Here is the information you need. It wasn't conversing with you, right? Like, it didn't sound like a conversation back and forth. Now it very much is like that creepy factor of like, I'm talking to a human, but not a human, right? Like, I don't need you to apologize. Just give me the information I asked for, write me the copy, whatever it is, right? Like, I don't need this, oh, great idea, Nada. Like that, person on LinkedIn was talking about, I love it when ChatGPT tells me I'm smart. Bro, you need ChatGPT to tell you that you're smart? I like worry about kind of the consequences of this.
Of course he loves anytime someone tells him he's smart. I know the one
but that's its own. But there were comments in there that were like, oh, I agree with you. And I'm like, ew, no.
Like, anytime you say anything to it, like, you're, hey, revise this, but here, this is what I'm thinking. And you're like, oh, that is the greatest point that I've ever seen made. Like, you're so smart to make that point back to me. And you're like, you say that with everything, right? Like, it kind of loses its impact. And, like, and also I recognize you're a computer. Like, I'm sure this is working on people and people love it. To me, it feels like manipulation.
It is. And I feel like
I don't like to be manipulated.
It really ties into, I think both of those things feel like a manipulation, right? Like, everybody praising this new thing, which I kind of was thinking about, like, we're both old enough to remember the start of the internet, right? Like, and when I think it's always that new tech thing where people don't want to feel like old or excluded. So they want to be like, oh my God, yeah, this thing is so great. And then even it does this messaging from all the different influencers, all the different business folks, President Obama of all people, right? It feels like we're being manipulated into believing that this thing is so great. Where if you actually, like, for example, that, the comments that Obama made, if you go and look at any comments done in response to what he said are from people who are coders. And they're like, dude, have you ever even sat down to look at the code that OpenAI will give you? Like, it is a nightmare to work with. And people will openly, like, people who work in that field will criticize it. But we experience that in the marketing side too, right? Oh, it's going to, end designers. It's going to end marketers. It's going to end copywriters. And it's like, no, it won't. But the messaging is so overwhelming in the positive direction that there's no negative discussion on this, and all the top voices, like somehow all these top influencers, our former president even, right?
Yeah.
Like, are all pushing this thing that you're like, do they have a financial interest in this? Right? You have to start asking that question.
That's why I say, because it is like, it feels coordinated, right? There's never universal agreement on things. There has to be coordination. What OpenAI, their last round of fundraising that they just did, they just announced they got $20 billion with another 20 if by the end of this year, 2025, they have to commit to be turning into a for-profit business.
Right.
So they've got 20. They got 20 more if they switch to this. They're going to, of course, because that's $40 billion. And because of they've lost so much money. They lost $5 billion last year. They had revenue of 3.8. They still lost $5 billion. That means it costs them $9 billion a year to operate that company. Where the heck is that money going to?
Right.
Now, a lot of it's their power usage, because they've said too, right, that the amount of people saying please and thank you costs them millions of dollars. Right.
I used to think my ChatGPT. Now I'm annoyed by it because it gives me too much fluff. And I know that you don't, but I'm
a robot myself, so I don't have those feelings. I know.
It's just interesting because I think it does feel a little bit like a conspiracy. It does feel like sort of a coordinated manipulation effort, because typically a new tech comes out, and it was kind of like that with social media, right? Like, there was more of a question of like, should we use this? And now with AI, it's very much like, hey, how do we use this for all these different things? There's no discussion. There's some, but very limited discussion on the ethics of it all, legalities of it all. I know we had mentioned in our other episode, there's going to be some regulations coming to it, right? Like, there has to be.
There's no discussion of ethics or anything. And I think it's funny too.
Yeah.
The fad of the action figure that everybody was doing. Here's me is an action figure, right? The amount of power, because I love it too, especially on the internet. Everyone who is an environmentalist, and they're like, oh, we have to go green to save the planet. But here's my action figure. You're like, well, you know what that just did? Do you know the amount of power that it takes for all of those images to be generated? Like, you're not really serious about this, are you?
But that's why everybody's chasing that social clout, right?
Yeah,
like, and that's why a little bit it feels like, hey, is anybody really using this? Like, that's great. Let's make action figures. Okay, you and I did not jump on that trend. I guess we can say that. I mean, I don't really care for those things. But, it does feel like everybody just wants that piece of like, oh, I do this fantastic thing with AI. Like, it's chasing like social clout, I guess, like becoming an influencer for this thing that everybody seems to be obsessed with, and you don't want to be like, missing out.
And it's funny, especially with the action figures, right? Because that went everywhere. And then this was meant to show the power of AI, right?
Right.
But it was on this one thing specifically that it was trained on. And I'm like, have you ever tried to actually generate images like for your business? Like, say, like, a useful thing. Like, I often will ask it, like, here's a set of data, that we have for this client. Like, hey, I'm told you're awesome with this. It'd be awesome. Could you make an infographic based on this data? No. How do you like nonsensical words? And,
Yep.
I mean, how do you like us to throw commas into numbers just in weird places?
Yeah. Or like, but that's why I watch a specific creator, and I won't name him by name, for email marketing, which I think some of the stuff that he does is really, really great. But his newsletter comes out, and it's all this like step by step of this is how we created this amazing, Klaviyo flow using AI. And, we didn't even use a designer. And then you literally try to replicate this step by step, and using images from his email that he started with, and nothing like that happens. And you're like, how are you getting this result? And I'm not even able to get anything remotely close to it, right? It just feels like, I do feel like both gaslit by both the influencers speaking on this and the ChatGPT itself, because that's primarily what I use. I use ChatGPT. Like, I know there's other AI tools like Claude and, different platforms, but
I've always liked Gemini.
Yeah. You're a Gemini guy. Yeah. I'm a ChatGPT, just you always used it for copy to start with. And now I can't get it to do any of these cool things that everybody else is obsessed with. So I'm like, what are you guys like? Has anybody tried this themselves? Like, what is going on here? I don't know.
They don't, because because it looks so overwhelmingly easy.
Right.
You don't want to come out and say like, hey, I tried this and it didn't work. Cause then people are going to be like, cause you're too stupid.
Yeah. Cause it's a me problem, right?
Yeah,
not a ChatGPT problem.
So
I'm just a hater. I don't want to be a hater on the internet or on LinkedIn, you know?
That's why. I don't know.
I don't know.
All right. There we go. How about that? Quick.
What do you all think? Like, what do you know, our listeners, what do you guys think? How do you feel about this?
Am I
AI
crazy?
stuff?
Is there a conspiracy going on? Something's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's billions and billions of dollars at stake here, everybody. There's a lawsuit that was filed last week. Now, it wasn't the FTC, but we saw a lawsuit in California last week over a non-disclosed influencer campaign with an e-commerce direct consumer company, right?
Right.
It happens. They're out there doing it. We know this happens. Why would the billions and billions and billions of dollar company, when the FTC is not doing anything to crack down on anyone and any influencers, why wouldn't they do this? Right? So I don't think I'm crazy.
I don't know. I mean, you might be, but for different reasons. Our listeners can tell us in comments. What do you guys think? Like, are we too far down the conspiracy rabbit hole, or are we onto something? Let us know.
Be sure to let us know. Thank you for tuning in again, everybody. Another episode of the Cynical Marketers is wrapped up. Check us out on YouTube, which is where you're probably watching us on. But don't forget, you can find us on Spotify, too, if you like to listen in the car or something to put you to sleep at night. You can download us on Spotify, too. So be sure to tune in next week. We will be back again with another exciting episode of the Cynical Marketers. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.